Hi, I'm Mack, and I'm on a mission to see the hurting get healed and the healed go out and heal others, in order for all of us to experience the true love and light we desire. This podcast is me sharing my journey with you, so you don't feel alone in your journey. Welcome to the Golden Rule Revolution. Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome back to another episode of the Golden Rule Revolution. I am Mack, and it's such a pleasure having you join. And today, guys, this is hands down one of my favorite podcast episodes I've ever recorded, and it is with. He's not even a brother to me. He is a brother to me, but this man, Larry Yatch, is the Navy SEAL that I have referenced many, many times on this podcast. And I've had him and his beautiful wife on before, but this episode is really powerful. And he breaks down the higher self, the conscious mind, and the subconscious mind. We get into a lot of stuff, and I will say again that he is the reason I'm alive today. He's an amazing man. I love him so much, and I know you're going to be blown away by this episode, so everyone enjoy. Well, everyone, like I mentioned, you've heard me talk about him a lot on the podcast, is because he's a big reason why I'm alive today. And brother Larry, welcome back. Actually, you and Annie did a episode a long time ago, and
it's been a little bit of time, but good to be back.
Man, it's nice to have you back. You look great. So the word, I know you get asked this every time, but it's also the cross that you bear by going through what you've gone through. The title Navy SEAL gets thrown around a lot. And I was thinking about, as it should, but I know you get asked what it was like to be a Navy SEAL. What did you go through? But I want you to share, before you even went to BUD/S, for everyone listening, like when you hear someone is a Navy SEAL, and obviously there's varying degrees of SEALs, but just how tough you guys are to go through BUD/S. Can you share when you drove across country and you were in Dallas in that swimming pool, and what happened to you, and just your journey? Because that's a wild.
Yeah, it's interesting because I often hear stories of people that wanted to be SEALs, but many of them never even got to the process of going into BUD/S. And many of them have reasons why they didn't, like, because I hurt my shoulder, or I had vertigo once, and I couldn't, they were saying that I couldn't go, or there's always some reason. And the same thing of people who even get to BUD/S, and then next thing you know, they're not there for some reason other than they quit because it was too hard, right? It was always, I'm sorry, I always look at it as an excuse. So it's, weakness in my book, but what I think the point I like to stress is that it's not an easy path for anyone. Like, everyone's got barricades just to get there, much less get through the training. And so then I share this story. So my best friend and I, Ed Yieldhall, we had spent 2 years as roommates at the Naval Academy, doing everything we needed to get the chance to go to SEAL training out of the Naval Academy, which is very, very competitive and very hard. And we both were successful, and we were assigned to the same class. And so we were having a going away party at the time was my girlfriend at the time. So we had this huge party, big drunken fest. And about midnight, he and I ended up in the swimming pool, and we were having a pool noodle sword fight, right? Those big pool noodles. And I lost the sword fight and hit me on the side of the head. And I remember it hurt, but I was quite inebriated and didn't really make too much sense of it. And this would have been Friday night. And so I went to sleep that night and I woke up the next morning. And when I woke up with a hangover, there's blood all over my pillow. And it was obviously coming from my ear. And when I kind of checked the Valsalva maneuver, like to pressurize the ear, it just like heard bubbles. So I'm like, that's not a good thing. My ear hurt quite a bit. So that Saturday I went to the clinic, the naval clinic at the Naval Academy, and the doctor looks at my ear and said, "Oh, your eardrum's burst." So I perforated the eardrum. There's a hole all the way through the eardrum. And he asked, "Well, what's your service assignment? Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I'm leaving for Buds tomorrow." And he said, "No, you aren't. You can't go to SEAL training with a burst eardrum." And said, "Well, what do you mean?" It's like, "You can't get it wet. Like, there's nothing we can do for it. It's just time to heal it. It's going to take a number of months to heal, and you can't get it wet while it's like this." And I said, well, why? He said, "Well, if it gets wet, it'll get infected. If it gets infected, you'll lose your hearing." And I was not about to let this, because if I miss that class, there's a good chance I'm not able to go, right? And that's it, because there's 15 other people waiting behind me to go in my place. And so I knew it was Saturday. I knew Buds was closed. So I said, "Well, why don't you call Buds?" Buds is the training program. "Call them and see if I should go or if I should stay here," knowing that it was closed and no one was going to be there. So they call, and so no one's there. I said, "Well, I'm already scheduled. I'm going to go there." And so they put the notes in my record, my medical record, and I pulled them out, like pulled that sheet out of the medical record, waited till the nurse left her station, and went in and deleted it electronically as well. So there's now no record of the burst eardrum. And get in the car with Ed, and we drive cross country. And I stopped with my parents in Dallas and went to a ear, nose, and throat specialist to find out, like, what are the actual risks. And he said the same thing. Like, you can't. It's going to take 3-4 months to heal. If it gets wet, it'll get infected and you'll lose your hearing. And I said, "Well, okay, beyond that, is there any risk?" He said, basically when I was starting the diving portion, if I made it through, straight through, would have been right about the time that it would have been semi-healed. So they had said that you'd have that risk there. Like, there's a chance that when you dive, it's going to burst again. And, obviously the more times it bursts, the more scarring you have, the worse it is. Okay, I accept the risk. And like, okay, thanks for the info, and go out. So I made this plan that I was going to get like a small part of earplugs and like put it way deep inside so no one could see it. I'm like, well, that'll work for keeping water out of it. So then we got to go through the medical screening while we're there, right, in Buds. And they're going to look at my ear and see that there's a hole in it. And at least I'm there. So I come up with a plan that when they go to do that screening, I'm going to like make a big fuss, like pretend to pass out, fall over, knock stuff over. So I had them look at my left ear, and then I kind of pretend like I got dizzy and fell over, or knocked some, big thing over. And then I gave my left ear again. So they never looked at my right ear. They just looked at my left ear twice and went into training. First day of training, I have the little earplug in, and all it did was get sandy and wet and trap more water in my ear. So I was like, after that first day, I'm like, well, earplugs aren't going to work. Just hope it doesn't get infected. And went through training, and I just had an earache the whole time for the first 2 or 3 weeks. My ear hurt, and every night I would just pour alcohol in it to try and make sure it didn't get infected. And eventually it healed. I was able to go through training. No one ever knew. I ended up having bad ringing in my ear based on the scarring, but that could be from way too many explosives as well. But that's that story of all I would have had to do was accept what they said, like, you can't go, gotten delayed, and there's a good chance that would have ended my journey right then and there. So that was my first weekend before Buds.
Just warming up.
Yeah, exactly.
A little warmer. it's, I mean, that's a great point. How often, I mean, the majority, that's what separates you guys from the majority of humanity, is most people accept what the authority says. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, but why? And what's the risk? I mean, just those questions alone, how many people are asking people, well, why? What's the risk? And then saying, all right, that's a risk I'm willing to take.
Yeah, I accept this.
I accept this risk. Yeah.
The doctor, I remember the doctor in Dallas looking at me like I was crazy. He's like, "Oh, okay, you're not my client, not my patient." And beyond that, like beyond that, right? So amazing, good point. I agree with you. Like, how many times do we just accept what people say? And that's part of what enables me to be a SEAL and others not to, is I don't accept anything anyone has to say is truth. You have to prove it, and then once you prove it, I'll accept it. If not, I'm going to prove what is true to me.
Yep.
And act in that. So and it's a weird dichotomy. On one side of it is this: if I make a commitment to hold a responsibility, I hold it every single time, right? And that was the same thing with my SEALs. On the other side, if you ask me to hold a responsibility that makes no sense, I will say no and not do it. And so there's this dichotomy of hating authority, hating isn't the right word, questioning authority at every point, and having this unbelievable string of need to hold responsibility, right? It's this like, it's a crazy black and white on both sides of it that would seem opposite, right? Would seem that they hate each other.
I remember you telling me one time that what makes SEALs different than other warriors in the military is if a commander of another branch would tell the group to go take the hill, and SEALs would say, "Screw you! You go take that hill. If you want it, we're going to
do it a different way.
We're going to do it a different way." That's right.
Whereas most would just run into the, run, and it's important that, this is an important point, right? Usually the difference between Marines and SEALs, right? Marines they have a really hard mission. Their primary mission is take enemy held beaches. They need to have discipline above all else, right? Listening to authority above all else, concern for themselves at zero. So that because when you take an enemy held beach, the first 2 or 3 waves are just going to die. Like, we know that. Like, it isn't like anyone thinks that the first 2 waves are going to make it and win. Wow. And so the third wave has to keep going despite the first 2 waves lying dead on the beach.
Right.
And so when they're asked to go take the pillbox, and the first guy gets shot, and then the next guy, like, go take that pillbox, he has to run and say, go do it. SEALs don't have that mission, right? Our mission is to, that mission is not about innovation, is not about freedom of thought. That mission is just throw a bunch of meat at a problem and eventually you win. There's no other way to win that. Yeah. Our missions are not like that. Our missions are the missions that everyone else said was impossible. And if everyone else says they're impossible, we have to approach it in a way that no one else thought of. And so you want guys to question what you ask them to do every time. And when they finally identify what makes sense to them, they will do it no matter what. Right. So that's that light switch of, no, I'm not going to do something that makes no sense. If it makes sense, I will make sure it's absolutely done.
Amazing. It's such an amazing journey that you're on, because, and we'll get into what you're doing now. I referenced you. I've shared your story many times in talks, because first of all, I love you, and I wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for you. And that's I know. But there was when I was in San Antonio as a reporter down there, I would go. Back then I was really into Christian ministry, preaching, and in that world. So I would go minister to the homeless by myself. And I remember the homeless people being like, "What church are you with?" I'm like, "I'm not with the church. I'm just here by myself." And they're like, "Okay."
Church of Lucas, Mack.
I'm like, "Here I am, baby."
You heard of it?
That's right. That's right. And I started bringing brand new undershirts down there, brand new t-shirts. Cause I'm like, these people are always giving you stuff. I want to give them something new. But in order and they would always try to grab it. And I was like, "I'm not giving you anything until you talk to me. And that's where I would have these beautiful conversations. Well, I built a relationship with this guy named Martine, and he was hyper intelligent. He was a very smart man. He was a veteran, and he was a tank. What he told me, I don't know, but he said he was a tank commander in Desert Storm. And I said, well, what are you doing here? And he's like, I'm not going to get a minimum wage job. He's like, I've been leader of men. I've been commander of tanks. And I thought, boy, that's fascinating. Like, here you are, homeless, sitting on the sidewalk, just chilling because you don't want to get a minimum, what he perceived as lesser than what he was worth job. He ended up dying once we moved from San Antonio back to Seattle. He died 2 weeks later. And a buddy of mine who I'd bring down to the homeless with me once in a while, he went to his funeral, and I use him and you as like contrast stories, because both military, both intelligent, both, on paper, learn the discipline of the military. But you, and I want to get into your story of like being a child, because this is what's so interesting. I think everyone has this, but they don't access this story. Not to the degree you do, but you have always had a purpose of protecting and helping those who couldn't help themselves, or sticking up for those because you were bullied. And your purpose has continued to do what you're doing now, still helping people heal and protect themselves, where that man who was a sweet guy, but he didn't have a purpose greater than what he was doing in the moment. And he ended up dying on a sidewalk, and you're still helping people. And so I've shared that story often of like, purpose is so important. It actually keeps us alive. It keeps us going. It keeps us moving forward. So can you share, because how tall are you 6'4"?
Over 6'2".
You're big.
Well,
I mean, you look like G.I. Joe.
So I used to be 6'3", and then it made me about a half inch shorter. So I can't quite say 6'3" anymore.
Okay.
They did give me metal, so at least part of my back's stronger.
That's right. Stronger, shorter, but stronger. That's good. That's a good exchange. So I explained that you look like G.I. Joe. I mean, you look like what we want our warriors to look like, but you weren't always that way. Share your growing up and the challenge.
Even before that, because as I was hearing you talk about the story and those distinctions, purpose is just one piece of it, right? Without purpose, we have no ability to move forward. Well, we can continue to move forward without purpose. A big mistake that people make is giving the world the power to give them their purpose.
Yes.
So how do people do that?
Yes.
One of the biggest ways they do that is by being reactive to their world, right? So as soon as I react to my world, I no longer have a purpose driving me. The world's dictating it. The other one, and this is one that's showing up more in the work we've been doing with people, is comparison. Right? As soon as I'm in comparison, I'm giving the power of purpose to the person, thing, or tool that is enabling me to compare to someone. Right? So as soon as I start using comparison as a means to direct anything in my life, I give up my purpose. I can't feel fulfillment. Right? And if I react to my world, I give up my purpose, and I can't feel fulfillment, regardless of if I'm moving forward. And that's an important thing. Without purpose, I can't feel fulfilled. That's why you have people, like I have a client that has $1 billion, right? Literally a billionaire. He's at a point now when I ask him, why are you still working? Well, because it's now a game. Like, can I make more than anyone else? Guess what? He has $1 billion and feels no fulfillment in what he's doing. The reason being is even someone at that level has given up their purpose to comparison. And so the first thing we talk about is purpose, right? So without purpose, I can't feel fulfillment. But in this story, that's only half of it. The other half of it is, what is your purpose, right? So this guy, his purpose was internal, like for himself.
Right. Yeah.
And for me, my purpose has always been external, not for myself. Right. And so the word I use for that is honor, Honor to me is living to a code of behavior, right? You can't have honorable actions without a code of behavior. So that's the foundation. But the second part and the most important part is it's a code of behavior based on the good of the group before the good of the self. And so every honorable activity, you are more concerned with someone outside or a group outside of yourself. And dishonorable behaviors, stealing, murder, cheating, lying, those are all where I'm doing things for my benefit at the harm of another, right? That's a dishonorable stuff. So the foundation of honor is the good of the group or the good of the self. The benefit of living an honorable life is you have infinite power, right? When you act for the good of someone else, you have endless power. At any point, you can be the lowest, most tired you've ever been. And as soon as you direct your attention to helping someone else, you have more power. You have infinite energy. To me, that's God's energy, right? Like, because what is that higher energy for, but to bring light, love, connection into the world. So when you act in accordance with that, you have access to it.
Right.
And that's why honorable, the Medal of Honor, people that do the things that require that, they do superhuman things. Why? Because I believe they're connected directly to God's energy. And so this guy was not, right?
Right.
I'm more concerned what people think about me because I was important. Therefore, I won't take actions even to help someone else that I think are below me. He's worried about himself.
Right.
That's dishonorable. He has no power, no access to power.
Right.
And he has no purpose because he's worried about what someone thinks about him. Therefore, he can't feel fulfillment. He was doomed to die.
Right.
With that type of living. Like it's just that is death.
And he truly did. I mean, that's not you could say though, there's the principles like you're doomed to die. And just knowing part of his story, and he ended up doing just that. And yet, and this is so good because it's not just purpose. It's you have always been this is how I describe you is you've always tried to protect those who cannot protect themselves. You just happen to do that. Your goal was to do that as a SEAL, but once that career ended, you never stopped doing that. You just were like, okay, how do I do that in the next capacity?
Yeah. And it was not for my own benefit.
Right.
Right. And therefore it's honorable, which gave me a strong purpose, which has enabled me to get through what many would consider are impossible situations, right? For a long time. And no matter how tired or exhausted or I didn't want to do it anymore, the fact that I was focused on helping someone else, I always got a little more energy to get through because it's not my energy, right? It's not coming from me. It's coming from somewhere else.
Right. Well, in that, let's talk about your physical stature growing up, because that's why I asked how you're big. You look like Duke from G.I. Joe as my childhood, like you're
only
a real
had better
American hero.
That's all.
He didn't have awesome hair.
It's more Snake Eyes hair, but Duke
that's right. Oh man. So, but growing up, you were small, and describe
tiny.
like what that was like and when you started getting bigger.
So I was, this is, with the work that I've done and the kind of mind expansion that I've had, I've actually been thinking about this a lot recently, because I'll look at myself in a mirror and it's not the way that I was, right? I was not like this. I was in high school, 5'2", 107 pounds, freshman year. I didn't gain any height until my senior year, and even then I still graduated like 155 and 6'3", right? Like super skinny. Wow. And I was never, no one would have looked at me and said that's going to be a Navy SEAL, right? And I look at myself now and that same thing. I mean, I'm 44 now, right? And I've had 14 surgeries to get put back together again, and I'm still in better shape than almost any 43, 44-year-old I look at.
Yeah.
And it's like it's hard to, for me, it was really hard to comprehend that. What I've been, it's a really weird, like kind of mind expansion stuff is that when I look at him, like what's the right word? manifested this or sourced.
Hmm.
Like I look like this because I needed to, like,
Hmm.
or put such intent in doing something, and this was the body that was required to do that thing, as opposed to growing.
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
fascinating. I know what you're trying to say.
It's
That
deep,
is
right?
fascinating.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's weird. So I'm like, shit, I look like this
It gives me
because
chills.
I
Yeah.
chose to look like this, because I needed to for what I wanted to embody. It's you're one of the few people, like I've never said this before, because I think you're one of the
Yeah.
few people that could follow what I'm
It's
saying.
giving me chills. It gives me chills. It's in a so this is interesting too. Dude, this is so good. I love you. This is so fun. So you in non-victim I would say manifested the body. You created your body from your desire um in a non-victim sense, but it's no different than the sexually abused person who
Yep.
puts on a lot of weight. They're
Yeah, to not
manifesting
be
to
attractive. Same.
not be attractive. But that is so interesting.
Yeah, because when you look at my dad's 5'9", and I mean he's not a strong person. Like he was always not weak, but he wasn't really strong. My mom is very thin,
Mm.
5'10", very thin. You know, my dad's whole side of the family they're under 5'5", like they're all 5'5", 5'6". My grandfather's small. The only one that had any sort of size was my mom's father. My grandfather was tall, but he was not strong in any way, shape, or form. And so that's where I look at it, like it doesn't make sense that I would look like this or turn out like this. And that's where I got to, you know, especially as you kind of open your mind to the different things of like, yeah, I created this because it was needed.
This, that is cool. That is, I want to off podcast talk more about this because this is I've been having something with me physically shift. I think usually it's not the intentional thought. It's like an underlying. It's like the default. Like it's like day or night.
Right.
It's this is what you don't think about. Oh, it's daytime today. No, it just is day. We're operating right now during day. It's almost like that level of knowing. It's fascinating.
Yeah. So that's
Dude,
been a
I love
weird,
that. That's cool.
yeah, it's been a weird realization as I've just played around with that thinking
Wow.
for a while. And we are just energy, right?
Right.
Everyone agrees with that, right? So
Yep.
that's not,
Yep.
we're not like some new age fuzzy thinking,
Right.
like we are energy. So why wouldn't we be able to make energy show up in certain ways with enough focus and attention? Because we're just a focus of energy to be in this format, right? It's a
Right.
concentration of energy into this form.
Right.
I don't know. It's a bit beyond my scientific expertise, but
It's really cool though. It really is it's beautiful. So you manifested this body. When and share with everyone, when did you know you wanted to be a SEAL? Because it was earlier on, right?
it's about 7th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I 3rd grade I saw Top Gun in the theater. I remember clear as day with my parents, my sister, and my aunt and uncle. And I remember leaving that theater saying, I'm going to be a fighter pilot
Hmm.
and from the Navy, right? Like that was it. And so from 3rd grade on, all I wanted to do was be a fighter pilot, test pilot, astronaut, you know, go to the Naval Academy. I knew I wanted to go to Naval Academy in 3rd grade, like that. And that's it. I started working towards it. And then about 7th or 8th grade, it would have been around 1981 or 84, or no, it was 90 something. A movie called Navy SEALs with Charlie Sheen came out.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the movie. I would have been too young to see the movie. But for my birthday in June, my friend got me a sweatshirt from the movie that said Navy SEALs on it. And he got it simply because it was a cool logo, because we were both too young to see it. It was Navy and it had a cool logo, so we got it. I had no idea what Navy SEALs were, because in the what would have been the late 80s, early 90s, just no one knew. I mean, even when I was first out of the SEALs in the late 90s, most people didn't know what a SEAL was. When I was going through buds, it's like 50-50 if they have any clue.
Right.
And so I went to the library and found the book called The Men with Green Faces, which was a Vietnam era SEAL book. So it's a book based on facts, but it was fiction. And I read the book and decided that I needed to be a Navy SEAL, and that fighter pilots were pansies. And yet it was a huge leap, because up until that point, I was not, in my mind or anyone else's vision, Navy SEAL material. I was not gifted at, I grew up in Pittsburgh in the city, and I was picked on, bullied pretty badly to about 5th grade. And then it started again in high school, and I was unpopular because I'm not a normal person. I've an abnormal way of thinking and interacting with people, which doesn't fit well in a little school. And in Pittsburgh, if you didn't play baseball and football and basketball, you're a dork. And I did not. I was never any good at anything with a ball or a team. I was the only kid to get cut from the 3rd or 4th grade basketball team. Like, no one gets cut from that except for me, because I was that bad. And so if that combined to, like, I never saw myself as athletic. I wasn't, by what you would see on the stuff. I was good at odd things like water skiing and snow skiing. But back then, like today, I would have been a cool kid because I would have been doing X Games stuff. But back then, no one cared.
Right.
And so that concept of being a Navy SEAL, I didn't tell anyone. It would have been embarrassing. I didn't tell my dad, until I was a senior in high school, and I'd already gotten into the Naval Academy in West Point. I had to make a decision between Army or Navy. And at that point, I had glasses. So the dream of being a pilot, my dad knew I couldn't do. So going to the Navy, if I wasn't going to be a pilot, didn't make any sense. And so I had to tell him, well, I want to try to be a Navy SEAL.
Wow.
And he's like, well, I think nuclear submarines are more probably better for you. And
wow.
Yeah, I remember that discussion, because it was true. Like, even as a senior in high school, no one would have, I didn't excel at any of the sports. I was the worst at all the sports I was in. I was no good. I was the bad at, right? I was never any good at, or I didn't excel at any of them. So, yeah.
Which also shows what over focused, or too much. Like, sports are so, I can't stay. We have been pushed down this path of that sports are a virtue more than they should be. It's not that they're bad or good. It's just,
I think they're a tool. I think
they're a tool.
The difference is that, like, I look at them as a tool for development. Most parents look at them as a lifestyle,
right.
It is a way of being, and that's where I think we go into trouble. Because then as an identity, that's the best, most accurate way to say it, right? It's an identity. You're a football player. You're a baseball player.
Right.
To me, it's a tool. I was impressed because I was working an event in Georgia at a company, and I know the owner well, so I was staying with him, and his son had football practice, and his son's 10 or something. I mean, he's pretty young, and he's like, you can stay here. Come on. Like, I've never seen a 10-year-old football practice. So I went, and I was absolutely amazed. It's a really competitive, Southern, super competitive environment. They had 6-year-olds in full pads practicing for an hour. And they were really good because, 6-year-old can't pay attention for 10 seconds.
Right.
So they would, every 2 minutes, they're doing something different. And the kids practiced for an hour and 20 minutes in the heat, in pads at 6 years old, and all the way up, right up to the bigger kid, all the way up to bigger kids. And what I realized was how soft we are on our boys.
Hmm.
Like, we're really soft on them. And I'm not saying that as a judgment. I'm just saying that as fact. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
they like, I don't want to pick up my Legos. Oh, you can't. Or I'm tired. I don't want to do that. Here's a kid doing an hour and a half of practice in the heat and
Right.
was able to do it. And the kids weren't being tortured, right? Like, they were having fun and they were doing their stuff, and it was hard and they were doing it. And I realized kids do that for that long. The amount of self-regulation they build up is going to serve them for a long time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of gold there if managed correctly. Right. Now, that can go off the rails 50 different ways, which is where parenting comes in. Right. Careful, thoughtful parenting comes in. You could leverage that opportunity to be a gold mine for a kid moving forward. Most parents don't have the attention span, the intention, the focus necessary to leverage that opportunity at the highest, because it takes a lot of effort to do that and some knowledge,
Right.
but the opportunity's there.
Hey, that's a great point. So a couple of things and I want to we will get into what you're doing now, but I've referenced a lot ALA. I've referenced you calling me that night about ALA, and my first thought was like, "What is this, a cult? Like, what are you selling?" Even though I had done, the irony is that I was in therapy once a week, sometimes twice a week for 2 years, and still not wanting to live, And you call me that night. For you, going into any sort of emotional intelligence training, leadership training thing, what was Brooks the one that invited you? What was where were you in the like mental space at that time? And then what was the change for you after going through that program?
I was at I'd say the second lowest I've ever been. When the surgeon, destroyed my back and said my SEAL career is over, and then getting sent back to San Diego and having my team be gone and everyone be gone, I was just alone in a house, hurting and trying to recover. For no purpose. That was the lowest I've ever been, for sure. And dealing with overprescription of drugs and dealing with withdrawal and dealing with them prescribing all sorts of things that were not good for me. Right. That was by far the worst. This was pretty, close to about the second lowest point of my life. And it was due to the fact that at this point, this would have been 5 years ago, about 4 or 5.
Yep.
I had been, so it's 2001, say let's 2017, thereabouts, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So I've been out for almost 10 years, right? 9 years of being out. And I had 9 years of dealing with pretty bad post-traumatic stress, pretty bad depression.
Right.
And nothing that I tried worked, right? And I'm not one to just sit there and suffer. Like, well, I am one to just sit there and suffer, but I mean, not to just be like, oh, my life sucks, I can't do anything about it, right? So I'd do anything I could find to try and help me in this. I mean, counseling and therapists and nothing helped. And I tried working my way out of it. Just like, maybe if I work enough and create enough, it's going to make a difference. And it didn't, right? It didn't, nothing got better. I was getting more and more unhealthy. I was doing more and more unhealthy things, right? Like, I don't have an addictive personality. If I did, I'd be dead based on what the Navy gave me on drugs. But I mean, I was drinking every night, right? And I was drinking solely to escape from the pain I was in. Like, I remember, like, I'm choosing this. Like, I'm drinking out of the bottle of like vodka at 10 o'clock at night by myself, just because I want to feel better, right? I want to escape from the way I felt. Yeah. And my my emotional disconnection was so great that, and my nervous system was so amped to we're gonna die, like,
Yeah.
so it was a combination of complete emotional disconnection and nervous system tuned to the red line all the time. And my boys couldn't sit in my lap because they could sense that something's wrong.
Mm.
My connection with Anne was just, there was hardly any. Anne's my wife. Business, we, no matter what successes we had, we would be 6 weeks from being broke, right? We would produce 150,000 in sales with 6 weeks from being broke, right? We produced 40 in sales and we're 6 weeks from being broke. Like, it didn't make a difference. Just miserable, like, in every sense of the word. And Brooks, who I met him my first day at the Naval Academy, when we were in buds together, we've known each other forever, was doing this program in San Diego and called me up on his birthday. And he was right in the middle of it. And on that phone call, I remember Ann and I were going to dinner, like a lunch together, just to kind of get away. And we were both, miserable as usual.
Yep.
And he sounded so different. Like, I could tell hearing his voice that something was different. And all he said is, this is going to make, you have to do this. It's going to help. And I said, okay, I'm in. Like, I didn't even ask him what, like, okay, like, you have to do this. I'm in. I look at Ann, she says, she's kind of nodded yes. I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Sign me up where I have to go. And when I showed up, I thought it was a business group. And there's all these like weirdos. I mean, like, not people that would be in a business,
right.
Business training. And right, I'm like, right. The hell did I get myself into? And I remember walking in, and this was the turning point for me. I walked into the room and they have all the chairs set up and the stage in the front. Mm-hmm. And I immediately go to turn to the back corner of the room where I can be safe and sit there and look mean so no one comes near me. And I was like, wait a minute. I remember having this distinct thought. Doing that's what got me in here, and I don't want to be here. Mm. So that's just going to get me more of the same. And so that's where I said, okay, what don't I want to do? What wouldn't I do? Well, I wouldn't sit in the front row and I wouldn't talk to the person next to me. So I go to the front row and sit next to a obviously gay person, which I've never had any issues with homosexuality at all. Like, it's not an issue for me, but I definitely wouldn't have sat next to that person and started talking to him.
Right. I
wouldn't talk to anyone. Mm-hmm. They would have to talk to me, and I'd be so scary. No one ever talks to me. So it's a really good self-defense mechanism. So I'm like, I sit in the front row. I sit next to the person I probably wouldn't sit next to normally, and I start talking to them. I'm like, if they ask for volunteer, I'm going to raise my hand. Anytime I don't want to do something, I'm going to do it immediately. Mm-hmm. And that was the turning point.
It's interesting you share that. I got choked up when you said that you remember that distinct thought, because you told me that going into that. And that's why I'm here.
Yeah. Changed
everything because I'm always the class clown. I would hijack any authority figure and take over. And I've been kicked out of more classes than, I probably attended, and there's all sorts of stuff because I didn't want to get hurt. And so I was defense mechanism. And when you called me, you sounded different the night you called me. And I'll never forget, because I'm laying on the couch. Lauren's out of town she might've been at Celine Dion concert or something like that. I have 3 kids at home. I hate my life. I mean, I don't hate my life, but I hate me in my life. I
hate the experience of my life.
Yes, that's it. I didn't actually even know how to access love.
Right.
I knew the concepts. I could talk about all these things, but yeah, I hated the experience that I was in. And you called me and you sounded different. I'm like, what? And we talked for a long time that day. We were both crying, and still, though, that's what I joke around. Still, my default was like, what is this, a cult? But I trust you with my life, obviously, and with my wife and my children. And so I went, and I remember you telling me, because my default, sit in the back, don't talk, same thing, only be a class clown as opposed to intimidate the person. And I did it. Because I wasn't going to come home if it didn't change. I was just done.
Yeah.
I'd done religion. I had done therapy. I had done all the good things that you're supposed to do. I'd done all these things and still was left with myself and hating myself. But I did it. And I've never been more proud of myself than raising my hand when he's like, anyone want to speak? And I'm like, I never. And I did it. And I kept doing it and I kept doing it. So that piece of advice, and it's so simple and so profound. If you do what you've
Well,
always done, you'll get what you've always gotten.
well, another way to say that is if you're unhappy with the experience of your life right now, what you're doing is producing it.
Yes.
Have to do something different.
Yes.
Like, and it is in the actions that change the environment. And there's also this is a rule that I've learned that's a really important one, is that we can make anything true in our life. Anything we want, we can make true in our life. And my truth and your truth can be completely opposing, and they can exist at the same time. Right. So my truth is mine, and it doesn't matter what anyone else. So I can't even look at you and say, well, that's not true, because it's true for you. So my truth is whatever I say it is. And then I act in alignment with that truth. I'm going to produce it. So it will become true in my environment. Okay, we got that. That's fine. If that is not in alignment with what is true, right? So my truth and what is true are two different things. If it isn't, if those aren't in alignment, the universe is going to punish me. It's going to hurt. Right. So when your life is not where you want it, if you're not enjoying the experience of your life, you're holding something to be true that is not in alignment with the greater truth.
That's it.
And you're acting in alignment with that, and you're being, I like to say, being punished. The universe is making it hard on you. When you act in alignment with universal truth, when my truth is in alignment with universal truth, and I take actions like that, I'm going to produce it, and the environment's going to help me. It's going to feel good.
Yes.
And so I've been excited to share this with you, because this has been a humongous step forward, because that's all great. Like there's some really important lessons there, right? The actions I take are going to be in alignment with my truth. And in taking my actions aligned with my truth, I will create it. Like it will become true. So what comes first, the truth or the expression of the truth in the world? The truth. I hold the truth. I take actions. I create it. Right. So that alone is worth listening to this podcast. Like that's huge. But when we say, well, if I'm experiencing pain, discomfort, dissatisfaction, we now know why. Well, I'm acting with a truth that is not true. And the universe punishes me. So then the question comes, well, then what's universal truth? Because if I knew that, I could start looking at where I'm holding untruths, acting in untruth, and suffering. And I think I cracked this. I think I figured it out. This is big. You ready?
I'm ready. I'm like, let's go. Let's go.
So we have our higher self, or a higher consciousness, our conscious, and our subconscious. I look at our higher consciousness as our connection to God or universe or power outside of us. I don't care what you say. It makes no difference to me. I'm going to just use God because I think it's easier. Right. But use universe. I don't give it, because you know me, my journey back to God has been just this last year. Like I had no relationship at all after 12 years of Catholic school. So for me to say it's like big for me, that's what I like. But universe, God doesn't make a difference. So you have the higher self, you have the conscious, you have the lower self, or the subconscious. The first thing you have to identify is, what is the purpose of those three things? Because when we identify the purpose of the conscious, the purpose of the subconscious, and the purpose of the higher conscious, now we can start identifying how to align them. So the purpose of the subconscious is to keep you safe. That's it. Right? Our subconscious's job is just to keep us safe.
Hmm.
The purpose of the conscious is to have us feel joy and fulfillment,
Hmm.
right? Because our conscious is all about making choices based on the obligations that we perceive. And we always choose in alignment with obligations that are going to bring us joy and fulfillment and keep us away from pain and suffering,
Right.
right? Our conscious. Now, our subconscious, job only to be safe, our subconscious is stronger and smarter than our conscious. So oftentimes our subconscious, in the effort to be safe, will have us making choices that bring suffering into the world.
Hmm.
Right? We see that all the time.
Yep.
So subconscious is safety, conscious is joy and fulfillment. What's the purpose of the higher conscious? For me, that higher conscious is our connection to God or universe.
Hmm.
The only purpose of that is to bring light and love into the world,
Yes.
specifically through connection, right? So what is light and love is connection,
Yes.
mutually beneficial connection with other people.
Right.
So if we look at, and what is God's energy or the point of the universe, but to be connected to other people beneficially, both sides.
Yes.
So from that point, right, point of the purpose of the higher conscious to bring light, love through connection into the world. The purpose of the conscious is to bring joy and fulfillment to me. And the purpose of the subconscious is to keep me safe. Do you agree with this? Do you see any holes in it?
Yes. No. Okay. Yes, I agree. No, I don't see holes. And I would use a different language set, but it's 100% is in alignment.
So then what is truth, right? The
Hmm.
universal truth is anything that brings light and love through connection into the world, has me feel joy and fulfillment,
Yes.
and feel safe.
And I would
That is
change the
truth.
word safe, because safe to do what? Safe to actually live. So it keeps us safe so that we can stay alive. So then I would not use that word safe, because that is from an anti-threat versus pro. Our
So,
subconscious keeps us alive.
so the reason I say safe is we can say to keep us alive so we can procreate, but ultimately subconscious works on feelings, not actual. Right? It doesn't. If it did, it would. That's our conscious works on actual facts.
Right.
Our subconscious will often kill us so that we feel safe. Right? My subconscious was killing me because I was drinking myself to death because it allowed me to feel safe because I didn't have to feel suffering.
Yeah, that's good.
My subconscious was killing me, my relationship. My subconscious was killing everything because its only tools for safety was emotional emotional divorce from any emotion, don't feel anything, and suffer. So unfortunately, our subconscious is stupid, is not to keep us alive. It's to keep us feeling safe. That's where our subconscious fucks us over and over again, because our traumas will inform the subconscious how to keep us safe. And therefore, most of the time, our subconscious is trying to kill us, or at least have us suffer.
So good. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I say safe, because I really do think it's feel safe. It isn't be alive. If that was the case, we'd all be happy. We just live with our subconscious, but it isn't the case.
Right.
Now I can start saying, okay, if let's tie these two concepts together. If I am unhappy with my life, my experience of life, I'll be very precise, right? I'm unhappy with my experience of life right now. That means that I'm holding something as true and taking actions in alignment with an untruth, and the universe is punishing me, or I suffer. So what do I do with that? Well, I start asking myself, is this action, is drinking vodka alone at night so that I can escape from feeling, is that going to keep me safe? No. Is that going to bring joy and fulfillment into my life? No. Is that going to enable me to bring light and love through connection into the world? No. I should not be drinking vodka alone at night to escape from my feelings. That is an untruth. Is having a podcast with Lucas sharing earth-changing concepts in ways that people can apply, is that true? Well, is that going to make me feel safe? Yeah, every time I'm around you, because I know you'll headbutt anything that gets in trouble, right?
Got it.
Right? I feel safe talking to you about this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Do I feel joy? Is it bringing joy and fulfillment into me? Yeah, because I did hard work to get this and be able to share it with you and other people. Yes, joy and fulfillment. Am I bringing light and love through connection with you and hopefully other people that hear it? Yes, this is true. I should be doing this. I shouldn't be drinking vodka.
Gives me chills.
Like,
it gives me chills.
It's just,
chills.
it's just the formula.
And it's the Trinity.
Yeah,
That's the Holy Trinity.
Yep.
Dude, that is so good.
I think so.
And what is, the questioning, and I'm not deviating us. I want to stay on this, but you grew up with the Socratic method and you had a father. You learned the questioning. Then this movement of Q came into the consciousness and the political arena. And all Q was doing was asking questions. And that's when things started to arise. And questioning is our basic human right, perhaps, or
it's our basic human ability to navigate our environment.
Yes.
Right. Yes. Like it's our only tool to navigate our environment.
Yes.
Right. Think of your 3-year-old, right?
Right.
They are a big question.
Oh yeah. Why?
They're learning to navigate their environment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What is this? What's it do? What's going to happen if I put it in the garbage disposal? Right. I don't know. Let's see. Right. So
I love that you would say that. Yeah, let's find out.
Let's see. Let's blow this shit up. We got it. I don't know. I'm kind of interested in out too. So good. Yeah. Is it mine? No. Okay,
right.
Let's do it.
That's right. Oh, that's so good. Yeah. What is this? Why? Yeah. How does it work? Yeah. Why?
So, and if we go back to the original thing that we're talking about with purpose, right? When you're reactive to the world, you lose your purpose. If you give the world the ability to dictate your purpose, you can't feel fulfillment. When we start to question, we're being proactive in the world. When we're proactive in the world, we can identify what our purpose is to live in this universal truth, and we can feel fulfillment.
It's so good. Oh, brother, thank you for, I'm not done with talking, but just thank you for doing the work, because I am here today because you chose to do the work and just having this thought, this deep, I love you so much just to think that deeply.
Well, I
articulate it so clearly, but I know it's done a lot of work.
It's not easy, right?
No,
that's not like I read that somewhere.
Right.
There's nowhere you can read that. There's nowhere to find that. And it isn't mine. Like this is not my knowledge. I feel like a archaeologist. My job is to dig and test and dig and test and dig and question and dig and test until I find fundamental truths. And those fundamental truths are from God or from universe. I mean, they're not mine.
And truth makes us free. And so that freedom, that liberated soul that we have.
You're not just in what we shared around purpose, fulfillment, about being the connection of our truth, or the truth we hold, our actions, and how the universe responds positive or negatively to that, our higher conscious, subconscious, and subconscious. Those only give you a framework to ask questions and be proactive in changing your life. Like at this point, and this is a double-edged sword. So anyone that's sitting there that is dissatisfied with their experience of life right now, you're now choosing that. Like you have no other excuses. Right. Like, because you can't say, well, I don't know what to do. Well, yes, now we do know. Look at an action and ask, is this going to have me feel safe? Is this going to have me feel joy and fulfillment? Is this going to bring light and love through connection into the world? If the answer is no to any one of those three, don't fucking do it. Do something else. You're no longer stuck on the side of the road to die homeless, unless you choose to. And I'm okay if you choose that. Like, that's the other thing I found. Like, it's not my job to save everyone. Right. Some people aren't ready and want to be where they are and miserable. Right. Just don't say it's not your fault around me. Like, I can't take that.
Right.
It's not your choice around me. Because it's your choice now. you have enough information to change it. And if you can't, ask for, I was about to swear again, ask for help.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
the only way that we can do anything in this world is through coordination of action with others.
Right.
And so ask for help.
I do want to get this in. I was like, do I get this in? I do want to get this in because it's been a part of your story. It's a massive part of my story. And it's because of you, I have entered into this. I share with people all the time. In fact, I had a call the other day. Someone said, he looked at me and he said, plant medicine? I go, oh, it's massive part of my healing journey. I mean, massive. And I said, I had never even had cannabis before I sat in ayahuasca. I mean, I just, alcohol was my game. And it has been, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to overemphasize it that it's the answer for everyone, but it's been part of this journey as part like the emotional intelligence program and plant medicine. And what was your, because I know you were coming at it from PTSD,
PTSD and depression. So I ended up with chronic depression because I was overprescribed antidepressants and anti-seizure drugs to mitigate neurological pain due to what they did to me in the hospital. So I've never had depression in any way, shape, or form in my life. They prescribed for 2 years 2 antidepressants and an anesthesia drug, not for depression or for seizures, but to mitigate intense neurological pain from an injury. And because of the effects of those drugs, I weaned myself off, and then they do permanent damage to your brain and your neurons and resulted in chronic depression. So I'm dealing with significant post-traumatic stress and chronic depression. That was my jam.
Yeah.
I didn't like it, but right. I was stuck in it.
Right. And then and then again, you're with Brooks and your soul liberation brother in this journey. Yep. And
if I had done so prior to this being known by anyone was I was doing, as you could imagine, I don't know if people can imagine or not, because I speak very complex things into very, very elegant,
digestible
pieces.
Yeah.
I get that because I do some deep ass research. Like I read, within this, when I was going down the post-traumatic stress route and it wasn't working, I started going into scientific journals to research post-traumatic stress and what they were doing. And I saw in a scientific journal, this would have been like 6 years ago, quite a long time, maybe 7. It was a while ago. They were just starting to test the use of psychedelics and pathogens to impact post-traumatic stress. And then that led me to research it a lot and also get to the point of, well, I'm never going to have access to it because I would have to go to Puerto Rico or Costa Rica or Mexico. And
Peru.
That was not going to be my future for a long time. So I kind of just gave up on the hope of being able to leverage that until I was in Florida 3 years ago, something like, I've been about 3 years ago now. And, really by the, I don't know, God or universe, right? Like ran across someone that had access to people that did this work and then got into that work. And so I did for a year, it was almost exactly 1 year. I did really intense work because when I do something, I go into it full speed. And in that experience, many, if not all of the different varietals and treatment methods. Anyone interested in doing this, the thing that I say is there's 4 things that you got to pay attention to, and these are critically important. And if you don't have a lot of information and pick this right, you could cause yourself more damage than good. The first is dosing, making sure that the dosing is done well. And pour until you say stop is not done well, right? The same amount for everyone is not done well. And most places don't do it well. The second thing is the environment that you're doing it in. What type of environment are you doing it in? We're like, oh, it's a safe environment. Well, is that environment conducive to the healing you need?
That's right.
It's not just safe.
Yep.
Right. The next thing is the people that you're around. When you're in these states, you're open, and their subconscious is open as well, and your subconscious can latch on to their nervous system, right? All our nervous systems are at different levels. So people talk about, well, I get an entity or I get some dark spirit. What's happening is your nervous system is tuning to the trauma of another's nervous system. And so you have to be really freaking careful who you're around. You don't need to talk to them. You're just next to them. If they're in the same room, our nervous systems are so sensitive when opened up that they can tune to any one of those. So you're rolling the dice as to, are you going to walk out with Jerry's trauma? Like, you don't know. And you won't know why. You'll just feel messed up. And the last thing is what process is being done in that space. Right? Most of them are run where you get a medicine and it's a big dose in a loose environment with people you don't know. Yeah. And in that, you're left to hope you're going to do well. Like, it's literally like rolling the dice in Vegas. Like, maybe it shows up 7, maybe it shows up snake eyes, you don't know. And within that, there's an opportunity that you're going to get a lot. But by the nature of the chemicals, they're hitting multiple neuroreceptors. So you want the neuroreceptor of openness, of consciousness, but you're also hitting neuroreceptors of visual, then the visual cortex and the emotional cortex. And so you end up having to weed through a garden of stuff to try and find the carrot, right? Because there's a whole bunch of other stuff, because we're not using clean. We're not triggering one neuroreceptor, we're triggering a bunch. Right. And so within that, it takes some skill to weed through that stuff and use it. The other issue is that it changes your consciousness so that you're going to have faded results over time. Like, you're going to come out crystal clear, my whole life changed. And then 3 weeks later, you're probably not going to remember what that was unless you do some serious work to integrate. Yeah. And most people don't do that. So my experience was life-saving and life-changing, and the growth was limited about a year. After about a year, the cost, because every time I put a chemical in my body, natural or man-made, I have a neurological, neurochemical, and physical cost. And we pretend like that's not true, but there is. And at a certain point, the cost becomes greater than the gain. Yeah. And that's where I got at about a year. And we've progressed into what I think is another level of healing, utilizing and helping the biome or the bacteria in the stomach that has been more sustainable and cleaner. It's also more expensive. Like, it costs more. Yeah. And so that investment has been huge. Like, so for me, we still leverage that technology, the plant medicine stuff, but we leverage it in a very, very different way. Yeah. Most places I've seen, and I've seen a lot, are relying on the medicine for the gain. Yeah. Right. So take the person, give them a bunch of medicine, and the medicine's going to guide you. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Maybe it'll be big, maybe it'll be small. Maybe you'll remember, maybe you won't. And that's a lot of maybes for me. Yep. And so what we're doing instead is leveraging proven processes of healing and leveraging the medicine just as a means to grease the skids. So like, when we're doing trauma work with someone, one of the risks that we face is when you start to get near a trauma, the adrenal system triggers. Right, just by the nature of having to talk about it. The adrenal system triggers, it turns off the neocortex. So the thinking, remembering, planning part of my brain shuts off. That's why therapy doesn't work with trauma. I end up re-traumatizing the person. Yeah. So when you're using the medicines, you can turn off the adrenal system. That's why a lot of people can find some healing. But if you're not guided through a process to deal with your trauma, you're again rolling the dice that maybe I stumble upon it this time. Right. Right. What we're leveraging is just the process of dealing with a trauma and using just enough medicine to turn off the adrenal system so they can't get triggered. Or just turning on enough of the what is opening a consciousness to rewrite a story.
Hmm.
And what we're seeing, the effects that we're seeing of doing this type of work is it's one-time customers. And that's one of the issues where I started to get worried was when I was at a year and I'm like, I need to go every 3 weeks. Like, when's the next time I'm going?
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's not one. And when the thought of stopping was like, I don't want to stop. Like, I need this.
Yeah.
Like, that's not good. So our goal is to make it so it's one-stop shop. Like, you come once, you deal with the trauma once and for all, and you don't come back.
Yeah. Right. Dude, that
So that's
that
been my
that
journey.
is such an important thing, and I can't wait. And we're gonna give a free offer away to the seventh person that reaches out, and we'll give that information here in a moment. But that is such an important distinction what you just said, because I really going through it, being my first time with you and Annie,
Yeah.
and then having numerous other times by myself with groups or different things. It I tell people you got to do emotional intelligence work before you go into that world, because
Yep.
that gives you at least a framework of not being afraid in the unknown, and you can go through and navigate. But if you're just like, yeah, if you're closing your eyes on a raft in the ocean and like, well, I hope I make it to the shore, you're not
I
gonna
mean,
make it
I've
to the
seen
shore.
so many. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but I've seen that play over and over again. And what I end up seeing is people are stuck in a loop.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
they're stuck in the loop of being, oh, I feel great. I see all sorts of stuff. Now I'm back to normal. Now I don't feel good. I need to go feel better again.
mm,
And then it's this same cycle, and they're not actually progressing.
mm. And
So
I'm so thankful for you. I
yeah,
love you so much, brother. I love you
yeah.
more than you will ever know. And so you have still, um, we'll talk about, I mean, I know you've had iterations, but now you're in SEAL Team Leaders is your company,
Yeah.
and share what you're doing with SEAL Team Leaders, and then how what you just shared of tying that in, and then we'll get into giving that free offer away to the seventh person that reaches out.
So our core, we've one of the best truths that I've uncovered, and the most powerful truth is that our success in life, both our experience of success and our ability to produce accomplishments, is 100% dependent on our ability to coordinate action with others.
Hmm.
And that truth has been is really life changing, right? Anywhere you're in strife or conflict with, it's in the pocket. This anytime you're in conflict with anyone, you suffer and you don't experience success. Anywhere in your life where you're experiencing success, joy, fulfillment, you're in fine coordination of action with others.
Right.
The the that our core business is enabling people to coordinate action better with others.
Hmm.
Primarily we work with companies, but we also work with individuals, and that's the core piece. And
Powerful.
what we found is when you get to an organization that has done most of the work, right, where they are able to coordinate action well, their limitation to growth are the unresolved traumas of the CEO, and that's or the leadership team, and that's where we do the intensive work that I was talking about. So it's trauma work in rewriting the traumas tied to, in sometimes, some medicine work, or the work with the biome to be able to naturally change the uh, neurochemistry of the individual. And so that core piece is kind of a 1-2 punch, right? On one side of it, it's getting the team to organize and working good enough, and then there's always a behavior that's going to stop us from progressing. So we either can influence the behavior of the individuals in the organization, or ultimately the biggest change comes from the leaders. And it
And
always comes back to trauma.
and you and I both know, because we both had companies before we're doing what we're doing, is our businesses never grew beyond our trauma. and
Exactly.
and then we were feeling like failures and looking at other people and
And it
like, what's
reinforces
wrong?
the trauma.
Exactly. It's so good.
Yeah. So
Uh
that's the core of what we do, and it's pretty cool. it's cool because we have such a large impact, because when we're implementing this behavior change with individuals within the organizations, they're learning how to coordinate action better at home with their kids or with their spouse. So it being able to produce those fundamental distinctions enables success in business, success in home, success in love, and the freedom from the traumas creates such opportunity for growth. And that's where I've seen for us, like the amount of money we've made is completely in alignment with how much I heal. And the more I heal and the better I get, the more money we make. And when we stopped focusing on making money and started focusing on healing ourselves, and through that healing others, well, then money shows up.
That is a powerful truth.
Yep.
Yeah. For the seventh person that reaches out.
So what I think they should have to reach out with is they have to identify or use our formula. Okay. So what is one choice that you've been taking and is it because it's not making you feel safe, subconscious, not bringing joy and fulfillment in your life, conscious, or not bringing light and love through connection, higher consciousness? What's the no, or is it no's across the board? And then identify the action that would have yeses across the board. So they actually have to do a little bit of work.
That's awesome. I love it. And the seventh person to send that to me will get a free coaching call with you. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's fine with me.
Dude, beautiful. Brother, thanks for staying long and doing this. And I hope this is
you're going to have to answer to Ann, because I'm 20 minutes late.
Oh, shoot.
You're mad. So you're going to have to deal with her, because I'm not taking this front. So as soon as we're done, you're calling her.
Right. Good. I'll smooth it out for you. I love you, brother. Have a beautiful night. And I'll see you in a month here.
Yeah, totally. See you then.
All right, brother. Bye. Brother Larry, thank you so much, brother, for everything. And thanks for coming on. And everyone, thank you for listening to this episode, this conversation between Larry and I. And whatever you're doing, you can ask those 3 questions and you can identify where you are, where you want to be, and move towards that path. So I bless you all. I'm thankful for you all. I haven't done this in the past, but if you are, I just released a new ebook on my website called Spirituality and Masculinity. And if you are a man or a woman and you want to learn more about masculinity and the male dynamics and where spirituality fits in, the new ebook is on my website, and you can go check that out. But everyone, thank you so much for watching, listening, and following along this journey. I got amazing podcast episodes coming out here soon. So thank you. I bless you all. I love you all. And I'll talk to you on the next episode. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for listening. For support in your journey, go to my website, lucasmack.com.